The last lesson introduced us to the concept of nationalism in India with respect to the growth of anti-colonial sentiments. We learned how diverse sections of the Indian society were affected because of the colonial rule in ways more than one. Their lives were jeopardized, they were exploited and discriminated against. They were marginalized by the colonial rule in every possible way. Now in this lesson we will be talking about something different, but it is also very intricately related to this same idea of nationalism. But before that, let me ask you a question. Do you know the name of the goddess that you can see here on the screen? Now this goddess is Bharat Mata. Now you must have seen a temple of Bharat Mata somewhere or the other. Now what do we understand by this one image of Bharat Mata? If you look at this image closely, you will be able to see how Bharat Mata is represented on a map of India. So it shows that Bharat Mata is a representative of India. Or rather, Bharat Mata herself is a personification of the country called India. She stands for this one deified image of India. Now it was very crucial to have this kind of an image in order to portray a nation, because this image of Bharat Mata is something that people could identify with. Just by looking at an image of Bharat Mata, they would be able to identify that it is referring to India. And Bharat Mata is a true embodiment of the spirit of unity, of diversity of India. Now when we had to talk about this image or this illustration of Bharat Mata and how it gained currency through the 19th century in colonial India, mention must be made of Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay. Now it was Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay who made the first image of Bharat Mata. And the quintessential idea behind the construction of this image of Bharat Mata was that this Bharat Mata was to stand for India as a whole. So when the colonizers were ravaging and exploiting the lands and the people in different ways, the people were feeling united. They were feeling a sense of belonging to their country, and this sense of belonging, this sense of a unity was being symbolized by this image of Bharat Mata. Now this is also a very reverential image. If India was being seen as a mother by these people, it meant that they were ready to sacrifice their own lives, their own well-being for the cause of their mother. So these Indian masses who were struggling to resist the colonial rule, who were trying in their own ways to overthrow the colonial rule, were actually fighting for the cause of their motherland. And this is why this image of Bharat Mata was very important to be constructed around this time in order to give people a sense of nationalism. What we heard just now is the song Vande Mataram, and Vande Mataram is today's national song of India. Now Vande Mataram was also composed by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay as a hymn to the motherland. Now the motherland was revered, it was a reverential thing, and so people were filled with respect, love and devotion for the motherland, which is why they dedicated songs and hymns to the motherland, and Vande Mataram is a very good example of the same. And Vande Mataram was later included in Bankim Chandra's novel Anandamath. Here we can see an image of the text Anandamath, which was written by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay. And Anandamath has a mention, or rather it contains Vande Mataram. In fact, this song was also widely sung by the Indian nationalists during the Swadeshi movements. So along with this image of Bharat Mata, this one song Vande Mataram also gave people a sense of rootedness, gave people a kind of unity, because it was the cause of their motherland that they were fighting for. Now, Bharat Mata has been a reverential image of India, has been an idol who was portrayed and represented in different kinds of ways by various artists and writers. Just a while ago we talked about how Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay was the first to create this image of Bharat Mata, and Abanindranath Tagore also made his own image of Bharat Mata. Now, Abanindranath's portrayal of Bharat Mata is as an ascetic figure. She is calm, composed, divine and spiritual, as we can see here. There is a very calmness about this image of Bharat Mata. It's so sedate, it's so harmonious. So this is the divine and spiritual nation, divine and spiritual motherland who was being represented through these images of Bharat Mata by various artists, painters, writers. And all these were meant to suffuse a sense of love and devotion for the nation, for the motherland in the minds of the Indian people. Now here we see certain other images of Bharat Mata. Now this portrayal of Bharat Mata is very different from Abanindranath Tagore's portrayal of Bharat Mata, because Abanindranath Tagore's Bharat Mata is an ascetic figure. She is calm, composed, divine, sedate, but on the other hand here we see Bharat Mata holding a trident or a trishul in her hand, and she is surrounded by a lion and an elephant, and both of these are symbols of power and authority. So this one painter who painted the Bharat Mata with a trident and surrounded by an elephant and a lion wanted to portray, wanted to showcase the power, the strength of Bharat Mata, the power and strength of this motherland called India as a whole. Now here we can see another portrayal of Bharat Mata. Jawaharlal Nehru is holding a book on which is painted Bharat Mata, and Bharat Mata is shown painted on a map of India. And if you notice this clearly, Jawaharlal Nehru is holding this book that contains images of the map of India as well as the Bharat Mata close to his heart. It shows, it symbolizes his love and affection, his devotion and reverence for his motherland. So in this way the image of Bharat Mata was being circulated, was being portrayed in different kinds of ways, and in this way this one image of Bharat Mata played a very important role in shaping the Indian nationalistic spirit. By the middle and the latter part of the 19th century, the nationalistic movement in India against the colonial rule was gaining power and impetus, because these people were filled with anger and rebellion against the colonial rule, and they wanted to free India from this kind of a foreign dominance. And when the national movement was gaining ground, the nationalist leaders now became increasingly aware of the importance of icons and symbols. Because this one image of Bharat Mata told us how people were unified, people were held together by a spirit of nationalism. We understood that people identified with their motherland through that one image of Bharat Mata. And so these icons and symbols were instrumental in unifying people as well as inculcating in them a feeling of nationalism. And so it was very important to have more and more of these images and symbols. One such thing was the unofficial flag of India in 1906. So here we can see three colors, green, yellow and red, and in the middle of it is written Bande Mataram. Well, this unofficial flag of India was proposed in Bengal, and here we can see 8 lotuses. Do you know what these 8 lotuses stand for? These 8 lotuses stand for the 8 provinces in India. Here we see a moon which symbolizes the Muslim community, and on the other hand here we see a sun which symbolizes the Hindu community. So this was one such instance of iconography that held the people together, that unified people together. What we see here is the unofficial flag of India as it was in 1906. Now we see here the unofficial flag of India as it was in 1921. Now this was given shape by Mahatma Gandhi. In the center of this flag we can see the charkha, which became a symbol of the Indian national movement itself, because with this charkha Gandhiji wanted to emphasize the power of the self, the power of independence, the power of self-dependence rather. And so it is by relying on the self and its power the Indians could get freedom and independence from the colonial rule, and this is symbolized by the charkha in the middle of this unofficial flag of India as it was in 1921. Now this surge of nationalism also took a very different shape, because some nationalists were of the opinion that if India's glorious past could be revived, then the masses could feel a sense of pride and reverence for the nation. And so in the late 19th century, nationalists began documenting folk tales which were sung by the bards. They also started documenting or collecting folk songs and legends from the villages in an attempt to revive Indian folklore, because they thought that it is in Indian folklore that they could find very vivid expressions of India's glorious past, of India's rich cultural heritage. Nationalists believed that the revival of Indian traditional culture would help discover a national identity, and at the same time it would also restore a sense of pride among the masses. So if these Indian folklore, Indian folk tales, India's past could be revived, then a national identity could be developed, and this national identity could be instrumental in resisting the onslaught of the colonial rule on the lands and the masses. And at the same time, if more and more masses became aware of India's glorious past, of the rich cultural heritage, of the rich history of this country, then they would also be filled with a sense of pride, and this sense of pride would also help them develop nationalistic sentiments with which they could fight the British colonizers. Now in Bengal, Rabindranath Tagore started collecting many ballads, nursery rhymes and myths. He believed that these ballads, nursery rhymes, myths were very good manifestations of the Indian masses' psyche, of their characteristics, because these ballads and myths were many centuries old, and it could be considered India's golden age when these ballads, myths were written. And so it was very important, it was very crucial to collate all these things and make them more accessible to the masses, so that the masses get to know about the rich cultural tradition, the rich lineage that they belonged to. Likewise, in Madras, Natesa Sastry published a 4-volume collection of Tamil folk tales, and this was known as the folklore in southern India. Now, Natesa Sastry was also of the opinion that these folk tales, these ballads, these folklores were the true expressions of India's past, and so it was crucial to revive the same. Now, during this time, when the colonial officials had come to rule the Indian subcontinent, it was imperative for them to know more about the languages in this nation, about the literature of this nation, about the history of this nation, so as to better rule and govern the people in the subcontinent. And so they started reading up more and more on the history of the subcontinent. And in this process, they also began to translate ancient Indian texts. So, the Orientalists, who believed that India has a rich past, a very vivid cultural legacy, started translating ancient Indian texts for better administrative purposes. And while they did so, they now realized that India was not at all a backward nation as they wanted the masses to believe, because Shakuntala, which was originally written by Kalidasa, was translated by William Jones, and likewise the ancient Hindu religious text Bhagavad Gita was translated from the original by Charles Wilkins. And while they were researching on these ancient Indian texts, they realized that Sanskrit was just as old as Greek and certain Egyptian languages. So in no way India was a backward country. In no way India was enmeshed in the darkness of ignorance. But India had a very rich and marvelous past and history to boast of rather. In the same line, we can also see how certain ancient edicts were also deciphered by colonial officers. What we see here is the deciphering of the ancient Ashokan edicts by James Princip. And this now provided a proud piece of history for Indians. So this is a major pillar edict of Ashoka in Lauria Araraj at Bihar. And these inscriptions, these edicts were deciphered by people like James Princip. And so while they were doing so, the Indians now became increasingly aware of their rich history. So the Indian masses were colonized, they were shown as backward, ignorant, but these kinds of findings now made it evident not just before the Indians but also before the Britishers that India was not a backward country, that Indians were not uncivilized and barbaric. In the same light, we can also see how excavations of heritage buildings like the Sanchi Stupa also brought forth the rich cultural past of India. This excavation of Sanchi Stupa happened under the leadership of Sir Alexander Cunningham, who was the director of the Archaeological Survey of India. And while this excavation happened, it could be seen that India really has a very rich past to boast of, a rich past to bask in. Now, certain Indian archaeologists also played a very important role in throwing light on the civilized nature, on the modern nature of India. Because the Britishers considered that Indians were uncivilized, they were supposed to be civilized, they were supposed to be enlightened by the Britishers. Now, this was the entire justification given by the Britishers for this colonial mission. But the discovery of the sites of Harappan civilization showed that civilization existed in India much before civilization dawned in Britain. Now, Dayaram Sahani discovered Harappa in 1921 and Rakhaldas Banerjee discovered Mohenjo-daro in 1922. Now, these discoveries were very crucial in the sense that these discoveries made it evident that civilizations existed in the Indian subcontinent hundreds and thousands of years ago, much before civilization had begun in Britain. So, in no way the Indians were to be considered backward by their British counterpart. Before proceeding with this lesson, let me ask you a question. Which archaeologist excavated the city of Mohenjo-daro from the ruins of the Harappan civilization? Was this excavation done by Dayaram Sahani, Rakhaldas Banerjee, Ramachandran Nagaswamy or M.N. Deshpande? Well, the correct answer is Rakhaldas Banerjee. Rakhaldas Banerjee excavated the city of Mohenjo-daro from the ruins of the Harappan civilization in 1922. With this, the Indians were now aware of their past, aware of the legacy that they should take pride in. And so, colonial historiography that made the Indians as well as the world believe that India was a backward nation, that India was a place of ignorance, of darkness, of barbarism, of brutality, was now to be contested. So, Indians started writing about the glorious developments in ancient times. And during these ancient times, India was really going through glorious and golden years. But all these glorious phases came to a standstill with the onset of the colonial rule in the Indian subcontinent. So, the colonial rule was actually the negative thing to happen to the Indian subcontinent and its people. Because it was during the colonial rule that India was dragged down. India was literally groveling in the dust. It wasn't so before the Britishers had come to rule and colonize the Indian subcontinent. These nationalist histories now urged readers to take pride in India's glorious past. Because India's glorious past gave these people a sense of pride, and with pride came this unity. This unity was very important in fighting the Britishers, because it is the idea that united we stand and divided we fall that the nationalists believed in. Because without achieving unity, without unification on certain common grounds, these nationalists knew that they would never be able to overthrow the colonial rule from the subcontinent. But this is not to say that the spirit of nationalism was a very smooth thing to happen, was a very easy thing to surge in the minds of people. Because all this while we saw that the spirit of India, of nationalism, was tied to certain Hindu iconographies. Bharat Mata was a traditional or a quintessential Hindu goddess. Likewise, these ideas of Vande Mataram or even the various kinds of things that were used in order to unify the people were rooted in the Hindu religion. As a result of this, people from other faiths, people from other communities felt alienated from this process of feeling together and unified by the spirit of nationalism. And in fact, nationalism did not grow in the minds of people very uniformly. Having talked about the glory of pre-colonial India, how the Indian masses were filled with a sense of pride, with a sense of devotion, with a sense of reverence for the country they were born in our subsequent lesson, we will be focusing on how not all people were together unified by this nationalistic idea, and how Mahatma Gandhi played a very crucial role in giving the Indian national movement a new shape and status. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers or to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it's rewarding too. So register for free now.